Anyway, I'm Christine Moore from Orange County, and I'll be chairing your meeting today. And I'd like to ask Councilmember Robinson if he would please lead us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. I thought it'd be very helpful if we went around the table and introduced ourselves, because of course the goal of this organization is collaboration. And so, Mr. Now I know I should be able to say Sayosi, right? All right. Would you like to start us, and we'll go around the table this way, please.
My name is Siausi Fine, and I am with the Florida Turnpike Enterprise. I am the MPO liaison.
Good morning. My name is Lorene Bobo, and I'm with the Florida Department of Transportation in District 5, and I'm our safety administrator. Thank you.
Good morning, Georgiana Gillette, Director of the Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization.
Good morning, Joe Robinson. Good morning, Joe Robinson. I'm Vice Mayor Titusville and the Secretary of the Space Coast TPO.
Good morning, I'm Andrea Young. I'm currently West Melbourne City Council. I'm a candidate for mayor, and I am the chair of the Space Coast TPO.
Good morning, Chris Cloudman, Mayor of the City of DeLand and Chair of the River to Sea TPO.
Good morning, Colleen Nicklin, Director for the River to Sea TPO.
Mike Woods, Director of the Lake Sumter MPO.
Doug Shields, I'm on the Lake County Commissioner, and I'm on the Lake Sumter MPO, and I guess I'm
Your Vice Chair.
Vice Chair now. Yes, things move quickly. Thank you.
Very good. I'm Christine Moore, Orange County Commissioner.
Good morning, Virginia Whittington, Director of Regional Partnerships with Metro Plan Orlando and Staff Liaison to the Central Florida Alliance.
Good morning, Lee Constantine, Seminole County Commissioner.
Good morning, Gary Hutman, Director of Metro Plan Orlando.
Good morning, Rob Balmas, Director of the Ocala Marion County TPO.
Good morning, Irie Bethea, Senior, City Councilman, City of Ocala, and a member of the Ocala Marion TPO.
Good morning, Ryan Kordek, Executive Director with the Polk TPO.
Roy Tyler, currently serving as Mayor of the City of Haines City, Polk TPO.
Brian Yates, Mayor Pro Tem, City of Winter Haven, Polk County TPO.
Nancy Daly, Mayor, City of Lake Alfred and Polk County TPO.
All right. Thank you. And ma'am, do we have a quorum here today?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
All right, wonderful. So before we move any further into the agenda, I'd like to call attention to a casting change under the presentation item 7A, under presentation status update on FDOT trunk parking project will be presented by Mr. Stephen Buck, the FDOT District 5 Project Development Administrator. And at this time, it is for public comment. And this is the first of two opportunities for public comments. Public comments on action items are heard before action is taken at the beginning of this meeting, and comments that are more general will be heard near the end. Comments may be made in person or online by those joining us via Zoom. People wishing to comment on action items in person must complete a speaker's card, and each speaker is limited to just 2 minutes. Members of the public joining us virtually who wish to speak will use the raise hand feature on the Zoom screen. If you're attending by phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. Once you're called, the staff will unmute your microphone and will ask you to state your name and contact information for the record. Rachel, is there anyone wishing to comment online on the action items? It might be Lisa.
I don't see any hands raised on the virtual side.
Okay. How about in person?
We do not have any.
Okay, so there's no one wishing to comment today. Thank you. And did you see anyone that was submitted any comments by email or phone?
None by email or phone, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right, thank you. So that brings us to reports, and delegation reports are provided for information purposes only unless someone has a question for one of the directors. I hope that all of you had a chance to review them. Are there any questions related to either of the delegation reports? All right, seeing none. Up next are FDOT district reports, and we'll start with District 1, Mr. COC. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it's Miss Edith Perez. Good morning.
Thanks for having me. I'm here on behalf of Wayne Gaither. He had another commitment today. Okay. He asked me to touch on a project that we have that's in fruition right now. It's the 2-lane departure district-wide rumble strips project. This is a $60 million project that was recently implemented, and for Polk County, it's worth over, there'll be about $8 million worth of rumble strips installed, which will total up to 1,500 miles of rumble strips and 2,200 miles of paint will be installed in this project. The purpose, many factors will contribute to driving, leaving the roadway or straying from their lanes. These include driver fatigues, drowsiness, distracted driving, poor traction between vehicles and road surfaces, and poor visibility. In adverse weather conditions, rumble strips create noise and vibration inside the vehicle that would alert the driver as they cross the center or edge line. Often this alert is strong enough to get the attention of a distracted or drowsy driver who can quickly make a corrective steering action to return to the roadway safely. It falls under our safety measures. The rumble strips are a good safety feature to alert inattentive drivers of potential danger of lane departing by causing a tactical vibration and audible rumbling transmitted through the wheels into the interior vehicle. Another project I was told to touch base on was the I-4 master plan. This project limits are from west of Polk Parkway, State Road 570 to west US 27 in Polk County. The purpose of the master plan is to document the existing corridor, determine mainline segments and interchange and years of need, evaluation alternatives, define corridor segmentation, and build local support through engagement with agencies and the public. With this master plan, we are recommending express lanes throughout the project limits. We have identified 6 projects in total and their year of need to maintain the acceptable operations. We're hosting a public meeting on February 15th at Lake Fargo Recreation Center and have a comment period opened up until February 23rd. Okay.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a lot of rumple strips.
Yeah, and that's just what is it, the south, and then there's another section that will be going on towards the north. So just for the Polk County part, it's $8 million, which is a lot. So 60 million for the entire. I'm glad they did that. We need some safety measures on those highways.
Okay. All right, Ms. Bobo, District 5.
All right, well, good morning again. What I'd like to touch on this morning is our Central Florida Safety Strategic Plan that we have embarked on. In the fall, we started with our internal staff and held a workshop. And then last week, we held our first of 3 workshops where we are meeting with folks like yourselves and the committees and the CTSTs and the boards of the various MPOs and TPOs. And what we're doing is we're really seeking feedback on what are we doing well? What can we improve on? You know, what are we doing that we don't even realize that we're not doing yet? But with that ultimate goal of getting to 0 fatalities and serious injuries on our collective roadways, not just the state system. And so we're really excited about this. Last week went wonderfully. We were filling the rooms with law enforcement, our schools, advocacy groups, board members, the CACs, the BPACs, and it was really exciting to see everybody kind of come together and understand how we can work together to get to 0. I will say that this safety strategic plan that we're developing will kind of culminate in probably the May time period with a district-wide, all 9 counties, a safety summit, where we will kind of unveil this plan with 1-year, 3-year, 5-year goals. And part of that goal is also to not take away from the action plans that the counties and the cities and MPOs are all working on. Our goal is that all of these things are really working together. They're going to complement each other. So I'm really excited what's going to come out of this and to see the enthusiasm so far. So last week was Orange, Osceola, Seminole. February 26th will be Lake, Sumter, and Marion counties. And then February 27th is Brevard, Volusia, Flagler. Hopefully all of you have received an invitation from me. If you did not, please reach out and I will make sure that you get an invitation. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Bobo?
I have a
Oh,
question.
okay.
Lorraine, do all of the districts have a Office of Safety and if they don't, are they going to be having them and also be doing a strategic safety plan?
So not every single district has an Office of Safety. Many do. Everybody does have some sort of safety efforts that are going on. I'm not aware of any other districts doing a safety strategic plan, kind of like we are. One thing I did fail to mention was part of that plan is keep continuing to do the infrastructure improvements that we are doing, but kind of going beyond infrastructure. How do we tap into that behavioral side of things and really almost like change that culture within our communities and make it a personal thing? You know, everybody driving here today made hopefully positive choices on the roadway, and like some of the people I saw on I-4 that were driving like madmen. You know, through those behavioral changes and changing that culture, you know, hopefully our numbers will start to drop and we'll get more people home every night.
Are you developing any metrics for cost on some of these different countermeasures? I had posted something on my Facebook page and everybody was ordering up chicanes and raised crosswalks without any concern for costs. And I was curious if you've developed any models.
So I'm not sure yet because we're still a little early on in things, but I know I just sat in on Seminole County's Vision Zero steering committee meeting yesterday. And that is exactly the type of things that they're talking about is, you know, those benefit to cost, you know, what benefit do we get and how expensive it is or inexpensive is it? Because we all know that budgets are very tight and, you know, we want to make sure that we're using that money to get the most benefit.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, Mr. COC.
Good morning, Alliance members. My name is Ciaosi Fine, again with the Florida Turnpike Enterprise. So no serious updates, but just one event update that I have is in partnership with Safe Mobility for Life, the St. Cloud Police Department, and the City of St. Cloud. The Florida Turnpike Enterprise hosted a car fit event at the St. Cloud Community Center on February 7th, so just about 2 days ago. There were a total of 15 certified car fit coordinators and technicians on hand to help participating drivers find the safest fit for the participants' vehicles. There were a total of 10 vehicles that were serviced with participants in the age range from anywhere from 65 on up. Car fit checks took around 20 minutes per appointment. A checklist was utilized to determine the proper vehicle fits, and a copy of that checklist was actually provided to the participants, along with other resources that we provided to enhance the awareness of safety and mobility in their community. So I would like to thank all the vendors and the agencies that were able to attend the event and provide giveaways to the participants. And on a personal note, I'd like to also thank Metro Plan Orlando because they did post our event, and that's a major help for us getting that word out for events like these, you know, safety events. But with that being said, that is the end of my report.
Okay, any questions for COC? All right, thank you. Well, we have 2 action items today, and our first is going to be the election of officers. And I'm going to call upon Virginia Whittington to facilitate the election today.
Well, good morning, Madam Chair and members, and thank you all for being here today. It is the time of year that we elect the officers of the Central Florida MPO Alliance. In your agenda at tab 2, you have an outline or a historical view of the elected officers from this alliance between 2015 and the current year. Members of the alliance shall select one of its members as chairperson, another as vice chair, and a third as secretary. These 3 officers shall serve for a term of 1 year until their successors are selected. The newly elected officers will assume their roles at the conclusion of this meeting today. So Commissioner Moore, you do not get off the hook.
I was ready.
And those elected today will serve through February of 25. And again, a list of the alliance officers are provided for information purposes. And today we would like to present a slate of officers as this rotation has occurred each year with the vice chair moving into the chair role, the secretary moving into the vice chair role, and then a new secretary being nominated. So with that, the chair nominee would come from Lake Sumter MPO, Commissioner Doug Shields, who's here today. The vice chair from River to Sea, Mayor Chris Cloudman, and secretary from Space Coast TPO. This will teach her to not be here today. Council member Yvonne Minus. And with that, Madam Chair, I will look to you for a request for any other nominations from the floor. And if there are none, we can move to action.
Okay, are there any other nominations from the floor? All right, then I will entertain a motion to accept the slate in acclamation. I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Councilman Ira.
Oh, Councilman Bethia. All right, Ira. Yeah, and second?
Second.
I can't see. Okay, all right.
Mayor Tyler.
Oh, all right, Mr. Tyler. All right, all in favor of the motion to elect this slate in acclamation, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, motion carries unanimously.
All right,
All right,
thank you.
congratulations.
Congratulations, officers.
I'm very used to, on my board, we have a lot of women, so whenever we make motions, we always say second more, second Benny, and so that's why I kept looking to see who had made the motions. All right, so action is requested for approval of the October 13th, 2023 Central Florida MPO Alliance meeting minutes. So I am looking for approval for these minutes. It's a tab 3 in your agenda packets. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
All right, by
Young.
Commissioner Young.
Second, Constantine.
Thank you. And second by Commissioner Constantine. All in favor, say aye. Okay, do I have, and any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. All righty. We have 4 presentations today. The first is which is an update of the FDOT truck parking project. I bet Commissioner Constantine will be ready to stand up and cheer about this. And the presenter is Stephen Buck. Mr. Buck, you are being recognized. You have good news for us, don't you?
Okay, I see the light, thanks. All right, thank y'all for having me this morning. My name is Stephen Buck. I'm with the Florida Department of Transportation. I'm the Project Development Administrator. It's not wanting to show you some of the cool slides that we have. That's okay. This is this is slide 4 in the deck. I'll just briefly go over the other slides that for some reason aren't popping up. So again, my name is Stephen Buck. I'm here today to present to you on the I-4 truck parking study that District 5 has been working on for some years now. And so a couple of the things that we did want to go over, obviously everyone knows truck parking is a national need. We definitely have a well-defined need along the I-4 corridor. You know, over the past few years, we've been working on this project. It's really been a true partnership project. It's been great to work with all the local governments, the MPOs, but we've also been working really hard with the trucking industry to make sure all these truck parking sites are going to meet the truck drivers' needs who go and who have to actually use these facilities. So it's been a really good effort from a partnering perspective to get into the communities. We've had 8 public meetings over the past few years to talk to the communities about the sites that were selected. Every year now we go to the Southeast Regional Truck Parking Championship that's held over in Daytona Beach. And that way we can actually talk with some of the folks who represent the industry, as well as the folks who actually drive the cars, as well as their families who are concerned about folks. One of the best pieces of advice we got out of that meeting, for instance, is that they really want a dog park. That way, you know, they can bring their companions with them along the road. So it's been a really, really good partnership project for us as we've moved through this entire well-needed project. So the other slide that's not quite showing up there is the actual number of spots that we've identified for the need. Currently, we have a current estimated demand of 481 spots. 2025 demand, which is right around the corner now, of 750 spots, and then a 2040 demand of 883. And that 883 is really what we've had our eye on, is meeting that demand and being able to construct the parking by the time that comes around. So the purpose and need. So in order to start these projects off, we did evaluate a PD&E study, and that was to identify, evaluate, and recommend viable candidates for truck parking sites near the District 5 I-4 corridor. With that, we have separated out the paths for the sites that I'm going to go over with here in a minute into different design, right-of-way, and construction projects. And that was to be able to accelerate sites that were more ready than others. It is just has a mind of its own.
Yeah.
Now I have nothing. There we go. It's still angry. It's angry. That's what my dad said when the technology wasn't work for him. So he said it's angry at me. His phone is always angry at him. So. Yes, man. Whatever y'all need to do. While we're waiting, I can tell everybody that the Southeast Florida truck parking event is open to the public, and it's fun to go and watch. It's indoors. Yes, it's indoors. They have the doors open for the truck exhaust, but it's indoors. It's a huge facility over there. Now? Hey, there we go. Thank y'all. Okay, so along the I-4 corridor, we actually looked at over 1,000 different potential sites along the entire corridor within the 4 counties that you see here. And we have eventually landed on 6 viable sites based on all the parameters that were studied. From that, we've moved forward with at least 1 site in each of the counties. So we have the 1 site in Osceola County. We have 1 site that we're moving forward with currently in Orange County, the site in Seminole, and then the site in Volusia, we ended up splitting into 2 separate sites. One reason because of the size, the other reason because, again, that project readiness, if we were able to get 1 site moving forward faster because of funding availability, we wanted to be able to have that opportunity. So these 5 sites total equate to 987 truck parking spaces. That number is going to be refined as we move into design. Sometimes as the buildings get a little bit bigger, we lose some of the spaces, but we're well above that 883 mark we were aiming for. So this is the Osceola County site that we have just off of Osceola Polk Line Road. We've been working really closely with CFX, Osceola County, to really move this site forward. We're actually doing some advanced right-of-way acquisition on this particular site as part of their Poinciana Parkway extension project. So it's been a really good partnership project again. This one's moving forward well. The Orange County site is actually owned by Florida's Turnpike, and we're partnering with them to evaluate this site and be able to move it forward. Seminole County site we presented on several times. That is currently in design, and we're acquiring right-of-way for that site presently. We just had a public meeting on this site as well. So this is one of the Volusia County sites, again, with a capacity of 275 spaces. So it's one of the bigger locations. And then on the other side of the road for the westbound of I-4, we have this particular site with 253 spaces. One of the unique things about the Volusia County sites is that they are both tied into environmentally sensitive areas. So we're actually going and putting in wildlife corridors around the sites to ensure that wildlife is still going to be able to move within the area. And that'll be an actual conservation area that we're going to move forward with the Water Management District to designate that. So it'll be good for the environment moving forward because right now it's not designated. So it's going to secure that for the future of those that wildlife corridor. So for the features and amenities, just a few things that we wanted to note. In general, the truck parking sites have common features. Some of them will have a little bit more features because of the size of the sites. But we have ponds, landscaping, raised berms are considered as visual buffers around the sites in some areas. And then we'll also have restroom facilities and other amenities such as vending areas, pet areas, like I mentioned before, garbage collection, windshield wipers, sidewalks around the perimeter of the sites where it makes sense. That way we can provide safe access to amenities that are nearby. I know the Orlando site, there's a lot of restaurants and other amenities that the truckers may want to be able to reach. So we're evaluating that on each of the sites as applicable. Safety features will also be provided, such as surveillance cameras, security enhanced lighting. With that security system, we're able to tap into our RTMC center in Sanford, and as well as have TPAS operations available so that truckers can know if the site has available truck parking when they're on the interstate. We've also learned from going and talking to the trucking industry that they have certain apps. We're working on tying into those apps so they understand. Those apps will tell them like there's certain sites ahead that have certain number of spots. And so they can do that sometimes instead of just worrying about the signs that are on the interstate. Okay, so this is kind of just a high level representation of what our current funding plan was looking at in order to get some of these sites to construction. So, and it's just a high level view of when we were going to have design right away and construction laid out for the sites. However, we were recently awarded an infra grant for these sites, which is definitely going to help advance the construction timeline of all 5 of the sites that we've talked about here today, 4 of the 5 sites that we've talked about here today. So the Osceola, Seminole, and Volusia sites were included in that. And so we're very early in the stages, so we don't have a lot of information on this. We're trying to gather and understand it all ourselves. But we are going to be moving forward and getting more information on this as we go along. With that, Mark Trebitz is the PM for the project. He unfortunately he's having a baby, so he's going down and yeah. And so I'm like, you're excused for having, your wife's having a baby. So we're not having the baby today, but they have to prepare.
Okay. All right. So do we have any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Can you go back to the slide that has the map of all the counties?
Yes, ma'am.
This is wonderful. Thank you very much for doing this. This is certainly something that is needed. See that long gray one there, Brevard County? The one that doesn't have anything designated for truck parking?
I'm so glad you asked about that. So we are currently identifying sites along the I-75 corridor. And then starting this summer, we're going to start looking at sites along the I-95 corridor. So the first step of that is identifying what the demand is. We've started doing that on the I-75 corridor, and then the I-95 corridor, we have our I-95 strategic plan that's already going on along that entire corridor. And as part of that strategic plan, we're going to start identifying those truck parking sites this summer, or the truck parking need, and then subsequently the sites.
So would you think that a now defunct rest stop that we used to have is now completely empty, that might be a prime spot to make into truck?
I'm not as familiar with it. I will tell you that, we are, where we can, looking at existing publicly owned lands, and where we have existing rest areas, we're looking at expanding them first instead of having to disrupt other communities. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Mr.
Thank you.
Mr. Constantine.
Just a suggestion, be careful what you ask for, because if that rest area is anywhere near homes, that will be a problem. Okay. Because one of the reasons that this all came up is we in Seminole County have been fighting for a long, long time for what was a rest area when first built became a truck stop essentially. And in the middle of 434, if all of you know where that is. So it became a very difficult situation with homes right up against that rest area, which was fine when it was a rest area, became very difficult and problematic when it became essentially a truck stop. But Stephen, thank you very much for this, because one of the other things that we identified in the study was that I-4 was where the insufficient amount of truck stops. 95 and 75 were in much better shapes, although they ultimately will have a problem too as transportation grows. But it was I-4 that was way lowly when it comes to deficiency when it came to truck stop areas. And that's one of the reasons why they were using this essentially urban area as a truck stop, and it became difficult. I would suggest to you though, and it just gives me an opportunity to say congratulations to DOT and everybody that now we have finished the Beltway around Central Florida and the Wekiva Parkway is completed, but you need to fix your map because it doesn't show that.
Well, yeah, it doesn't.
Nope. But kind of like where that star is where it continues on down all the way to Lake County and puts a circle around Central Florida.
Mr. Buck, I have a question as well. With this additional funding from the infra grant, you might have said it, but how does that help to accelerate the process with the construction?
We're still working on all those details. We do know that because it's an influx of funding, because not all the sites were fully funded through construction. And so for these 4 sites, for instance, we didn't have full funding for all of them through construction. So hopefully that'll help us get there for all of these sites and be able to move them all and advance them.
So you have more details perhaps in a subsequent meeting?
Absolutely, more details in the subsequent meeting. We are still trying to get everything figured out ourselves. So yes.
Okay. Anyone else? Question? All
Madam
right,
Chair.
thank you. Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Stephen,
Mr.
the infra grant is going to help advance 4 of the 5 sites, right? And the 4, what's the total number of spots in those 4 that will be advanced? Did you say?
9.
9.
Well, it's 5 sites. I'm sorry. It's the 900. Oh no, that includes the Orange County site, which wouldn't include in that, which has about 100 sites. So it'd be about 887 of the spots.
And so that satisfies what we assume to be the what year? 2050?
2040.
2040
Yep,
demand?
883. Yes.
Okay.
With those sites, we will surpass the 883.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hutman. Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Buck, for your presentation today. Okay, our next presenter is Miss Georgiana Gillette, and she is going to talk to us about the regional project prioritization process. And you've done this for us quite a while, so thank you so much for being here.
My apologies. Can't believe that it's that time of year again. It just seems like we adopted it just a few months ago. So to kick off the presentation, as you know, MPOs around the state develop a list of transportation project priorities for their respective planning areas. And they do this on an annual basis. These priorities are sometimes separated into categories based on types of projects or the funding type that supports those priorities. And once these projects are adopted, they're forwarded over to the DOT for their use in programming state and federal funding to our respective areas. Here in Central Florida, the MPOs work through the Central Florida MPO Alliance to collectively develop a regional transportation priority list that will assist the district in programming projects that are considered regional in nature. And, through this unified approach, we hope to leverage increased resources for the region and then connect the populations and attractions by working as an alliance with FDOT. This activity that we do each year is guided by an adopted process to provide clear support to DOT. and the collective priorities for the region. Included in the priorities, the categories are over to the right. And not all transportation projects and funding categories are really appropriate for the regional approach. But the first category is the strategic intermodal system. And of course, as you know, these are our high priority projects of regional and statewide significance. We have our regional trails. That's generally the Sun Trail system, but there are other trails included that are considered regional in nature. The regional transit projects, typically rail and bus rapid transit, transit projects that cross county lines and boundaries could be considered. And we want to further recommendations from the regional transit study that the Alliance adopted several years back. Transportation Regional Incentive Program, or TRIP. These are state funds available at 50% to provide incentives for local governments and the private sector to help pay for projects that support regional travel and commerce. And then our last category that we added last year is Transportation System Management and Operations. The TSM&O is a new category, and this includes a set of projects and strategies that use technology and real-time operational procedures. And Eric Hill from Metroplan Orlando kind of led that effort. And so this is a new category that we can submit projects for. And under tab 4 of your correspondence is the current adopted regional priorities project list. And so as we, now that the dust is beginning to settle from the work program cycle, as we review and develop our new regional priority list, there's a few things that we always have to be mindful of. You know, we all have adopted long-range transportation plans. In fact, many of us are already developing a new plan. And, you know, this is our strategic document that helps, you know, set the vision and our cost feasible projects. The DOT has been developing the draft SIS cost feasible plan for a while now. And that is not completely adopted. They're trying to, you know, fold in those Moving Florida Forward projects and maybe some new funding that may have come up earlier this year. So that needs to be considered as well. We have our individual priority list that we need to look at. And then, of course, you need to consider that new funding and cost estimates. You know, do we need to adjust those cost estimates? Is it still enough money to move these projects forward? So all of this has to kind of be looked at over the next few months. And, you know, as part of the process, there's an approved timeline. We're in the very early stages, just kicking this off. And over the next couple of months, probably the February to May time frame, we will work with our individual subcommittees to review and update our priority lists. And typically during the months of June and July, each MPO will adopt their individual priority list. And once each MPO has taken action and submitted their list to DOT, we work together to meld the 6 lists together. And the final list will be adopted at the October 13th Alliance meeting and transmitted to DOT for programming. And that's all I have for you today. Madam Chair, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gillette. Any questions for her about the process? I think most of us here have been through it a couple of times. All right, thank you so much for that kickoff. All right, now we have an update from Mr. Alex Trauger from Metroplan on the federal GHG performance measures and targets. And we thank you for your presentation today.
I drew the short straw the other day on the Alliance Directors call, so I'm going to be covering this topic today, but I want to kind of not to purport. I'm not an air quality expert by any means, nor an attorney. So as I'm covering some topics today, just keep that in mind. Really more of a messenger today. You're going to be hearing a lot more about this over the next few months individually at each of your local MPO meetings. So effective, or take a step back here. In December, US DOT came out with a final rule. The Federal Highway Administration came out with a final rule specific to greenhouse gas or tailpipe carbon dioxide emissions. But then effective this year, January 8th, Federal regulations were amended to include a new federal performance measure, a new federal transportation performance measure. Each MPO is probably familiar with performance measure 1, which is safety, performance measure 2, which is asset conditions, 3 is actually systems reliability, and then there's also transit asset management, transit safety and security. But this is a new addition to the performance reliability category, and it creates a new transportation performance measure specific to carbon reduction, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that. It has implications to the state DOTs as well as metropolitan planning organizations. So my presentation will be talking a little bit more about that, but again, you'll be hearing more about this over the next few months more specifically. So again, new ruling, new approach, MPOs must consider greenhouse gas emissions as part of the short-term and long-range transportation planning process. The metric specific to the federal performance measure is tailpipe CO2, so it's specific to automotive mobile sources, not to other point sources that you may be familiar for other precursor emissions that your MPOs track. And the performance measure is percent change. So we're looking at the metric itself, CO2 emissions, and then the performance measure is a reduction, or you must show a reduction, adopt a target with a percent reduction from tailpipe emissions from the base year or the reference year, which is calendar year 22, moving forward. So there's a 4-year target, as well as I'll talk about more, the need to incorporate this into our long-range planning document. So we'll also need a 2050 target. Federal Highway Administration offers a handful of different approaches in calculating the greenhouse gas metric. You can use more sophisticated post-processing models, or they've offered a pretty rudimentary fuel times a CO2 coefficient times vehicle miles traveled on the national highway system within a certain area. So each of our MPOs, or in some cases, joint areas, which I'll talk about in a moment, also are required to adopt a joint target. But again, there's a simple approach. There's more complex approaches. Over the next few months, we're going to be working together to explore those options and chart a path forward. Again, there are reporting requirements specific to MPO within federal law. We have to work with the State Department of Transportation in doing so to ensure that our methods so we have a consistent method moving forward. We also have to include this, and as I mentioned before, include this into our long-range transportation plans, our 2050 plans. Good news is, we're all in the process, whether just kicking off or in the early stages of those plans. So we do have some time to pivot, some time to incorporate this into the planning process more specifically. And again, there's annual requirements as it relates to calculating those tailpipe emissions, describing methodologies used, and as that last dash bullet at the bottom, for our joint planning areas, Metro Plan Orlando and the Lake Sumter MPO share a U.S. Census urbanized area, the Sanford, Orlando, Claremont urbanized area. So a joint target will need to be affirmed, similar to the Lake Sumter MPO and Ocala Marion with the Lady Lake. There is a joint target that will need to be confirmed, and likewise Polk, Metro Plan Orlando, and Lake Sumter, we share a Four Corners urbanized area. So there will be coordination. So the alliance is really centric to that process. So we move forward collectively with a consistent methodology that I think we can all agree upon. So we're going to be working with the directors over the next few months to identify methodologies and a path forward that we can present to the alliance, but also to each of the individual MPO, TPO boards. The federal rule also provides a date specific as it relates to the inclusion of the greenhouse gas targets within our existing core products. So we're going to have to adopt a target this year, but as it relates to including them directly within the transportation improvement program and in our long range plans, we have really until January 8th of 2026, which is good timing. Most of our plans are, especially the long range plan document is due sometime in mid to late 2025. So again, we have some time to incorporate appropriately, but this is a new federal requirement that we must satisfy at kind of corrective action during certification risk, as I read it today. So a little more background, and this information is provided in your agenda packets under tab 5. I know some of our board members received these when they were as they were coming out. But the the FDOT opted to not submit a carbon reduction strategy, and more information is provided in your agenda packets. In doing so, there is a lawsuit between with FDOT, 21 other states, stating that Federal Highway Administration overstepped the IIJA ruling, which created a funding source and performance measures, but it did not specify the need to identify a greenhouse gas target. So that's in play, but based on the feedback that we've received from the Federal Highway Administration, or let me take a step back here. Based on that lawsuit that's taking place, Federal Highway Administration has extended the deadline for state DOTs, for each of those 22 state DOTs, as well as MPOs. They basically gave us another 60 days on the final ruling timeline to reconsider while the legislation is taking place, or excuse me, while the judicial process is taking place. There could be a stay, where the lawsuits are upheld, or federal ruling could be upheld, and then we are back at the requirements associated in federal law. So a lot's in play, but I think what's important to note is we need to take a proactive step because our planning process and the certification of that long-range metropolitan planning process is really needing to follow federal law, aside from any state actions that are currently taking place. So the deadlines were extended, which gives us some time to work collaboratively across our MPO boundaries. And we discussed this a little bit with the director's call the other day, but we think it is a good idea, looking at looking at the final ruling, looking at the situation at hand, and the requirements associated, that we work as an alliance, especially with those joint urbanized areas needing to have a joint target adopted. So we're going to be talking more about that at your coming meetings. We're going to be working closely with one another to, again, develop a regional method. There's a few options, and we're going to explore each of those, the resources, the outputs, what's intended by that. We're also going to need to work closely with FDOT and Federal Highway Administration over the next few months as well, just to make sure we have really clear expectations and we all know what we're getting into, risks, liabilities associated moving forward. And that last one there is really important. We will identify greenhouse gas targets at the MPO levels, but also within the shared urbanized areas. MPOs have until, as noted on this slide, in the last September 25th. But at any time, but I think that second note at the very bottom, it's all in the footnotes here today. We have 180 days following FDOT's decision. So while USDOT, or the Federal Highway Administration, extended the deadline for state DOTs to March 29th, any action that the state takes before that date starts our shot clock begins really as soon as the FDOT sets a target or opts out of sending a target. So with that being said, this is really more of a kind of a noticing presentation. You're going to be hearing a lot more about this over the next few months as we work together. But I'll answer any questions as I can, but I'd probably suggest following this meeting, working directly with your executive directors at each of the MPOs if you have any specific questions. So I'll be happy to field whatever I can today, or add to the research list as we're moving forward.
Well, Mr. Trotter, you said you weren't going to be an attorney, but I think you had to step in that role a little bit. I have a question. And so if the state opts out, where do you think that leaves us with the MPOs?
So the changes did happen, the federal regulations were changed. So they are now part of the federal law governing metropolitan plans. And I provide my presentation as well. It has some of the statutory references. We'll still, the feedback that we got from the feds, pending the judicial process, if there's a stay, and it's kicked back, that changes everything. But if it's upheld, if the law and the final ruling is upheld, Federal Highway has really already pointed to the rules which are specific to MPOs. And it speaks to the performance-based planning requirements about the TIP in our long-range plan needing to include those. And typically when federal highway does that review process, it's during our certification that happens every 5 years. So that's where we'd likely, without, having too much more discussions with federal highway, it would likely be a corrective action at a minimum to our certification process. We always aim to have no corrective actions, as kind of MPO staff. So that would be a blemish on our certification and something that we would immediately have to address. There could also be financial implications to that if we as MPOs don't respond. The funds were identified, carbon reduction funds were part of the IIJA, the bipartisan infrastructure law. MPOs in District 5 probably receive between $2 and $4 million a year under that carbon reduction program. Worst case scenario, those funds would be returned. But we've gotten some partial guarantees from DOT that in the time being, funds are safe. But again, as this unfolds, it's something that we need to be proactive about to make sure that if we need to pivot, we have enough time to do that collectively.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Mr. Ball.
Well, this was an excellent overview, Alex. Really appreciate it. And could you make this available to us? And that'd be greatly appreciated. And I really appreciate as a smaller MPO, the opportunity to work together on this, because when I first looked at this, I got a little bit stressed thinking, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
Then I also was contacted though by the Hernando Citrus MPO because we have to develop a joint target with them, and they're a small MPO. And so I was wondering if they could join the group at some point too, just because we have to work together with them. I know they're talking with Pasco MPO, so there's a lot of cross-jurisdictional, cross-regional, and district coordination needed as well. So thank you.
Yeah, all right. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Shields.
Might be too far in the weeds right now, but is there anything in there about how we account for growth? Because I mean, how do you do projections? We don't know how many people are going to be moving in.
I think that's a concern specific to the methodology. It is total tailpipe emission. We're not normalizing by a population or a growth factor. So it's specific to a date target. So that is a factor that has to be considered in this analysis.
Yeah, that's a concern. Anyone else? Any other questions? Thank you. Yes.
Madam Chair, thank you. Ryan Kordick with the Polk TPO. I just wanted to echo Rob's comments. Actually, this is one of the better presentations I've heard on this topic. So Alex, a great job. Kudos. And just want to express that, and that, yes, we look forward to working with the group and defining what these targets may be. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so if I don't have any other questions, on our agenda, we were to have a short roundtable discussion about Vision Zero planning, safe streets and roads for all. And I thought I would jump in here because I've had a meeting and I could start the conversation about how it went. We had a community meeting, and I probably had 30, 40 people show up, and it was facilitated, and everyone had to go around to these different maps, and they showed them countermeasures, and the folks got to put stickies on there, what kind of countermeasures they would like to see. So it was good engagement. I really liked it. I was worried about costs. You heard that in my question to you earlier, because everyone was ordering up every countermeasure they could think of, because that's kind of a universal concern in my district, that people want to be safer. But I still have questions about how we're going to get to the broader community, because when I post on Facebook, I'll get 80%, they're all for slowing people down, speed humps, what have you. But then there's that other 20% that really wants to speed. And they're not shy about telling me. And so that's where we're at. We're getting the conversation and the more engaged citizens, but we haven't really drilled down yet into the everyday folks. And so if anyone else would like to jump in what's happening, I know that was the goal for Ms. Whittington, for us to hear what's going on in our communities with regards to Vision Zero. So if any of the members like to raise your hand, we'd love to hear what's happening in your area. Georgiana.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to give you a quick update on our activities. We just adopted yesterday an update to our 2020 Vision Zero Action Plan. And we wanted to include some new strategies and goals and maybe some best practices because we really felt like we accomplished quite a bit. We also updated our high injury network and the equity analysis so that we can qualify for Safe Streets for All grant opportunities. And that was something that we needed to do, was to update that plan. And now we we have identified target corridors, so we can really know exactly the corridors that we need to be focusing on for different efforts. The second phase of that would be to select a couple of projects and work with our local governments to actually apply for infrastructure funding. As of December 2022, Vision Zero resolutions were adopted by all 16 of our cities and towns, including Brevard County and the Brevard County School Board. So we were very excited about that. Excuse me. Year to date, we've participated in 43 outreach events and opportunities covering 10 of our municipalities. And we thank the DOT so much because they have been a huge partner with us, doing pop-up events and what have you. And in the spring, we will be doing a law enforcement tour because we feel that we need to go out and meet one-on-one with our law enforcement agencies. They do so much. The enforcement part is such a key to all of this. And Brevard County has adopted Best Foot Forward. Thank you very much, DOT, because really at the end of the day, you know, we can do all of these efforts, but when your local governments, yes, they've adopted a resolution, but when they buy into it and it becomes part of our culture is when I really think, you know, things are going to start happening. So this isn't just a TPO-led event. This is embedded into our local governments. And so I'm very proud of our area, but we have a lot more work to do. And we're looking forward to the February 27th event for Volusia with Volusia and Brevard County. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Gillette. Anyone else? You gave a high level and I was down right in my district. Yes, Mr. Bombs.
We have a little tag team here.
Okay.
One of my
tag
bosses.
team.
Well, our TPO adopted a Vision Zero plan November of 2022 under Councilman Bethay's leadership and guidance. And so that was something we're real proud of. And we tried to get our community positioned for Safe Streets and Roads for All grant opportunities through that process. It's really helped us in collaborating together. It's helped really solidify a lot of really good partnerships with first responders in the school district and DOT. We greatly appreciated Lorene participating and coming to our TPO meetings several times. We in fact produced also a project list to help position our local partners for Safe Streets and Roads for All grants. We're focused on really education and awareness as well. We created a dashboard and an annual report. We want to continue to have like annual meetings to collaborate and coordinate. But I want to turn over to Councilman Bethay because he's done a lot of leadership too, and with the city of Ocala and helping them get positioned.
I really don't need to say too much more. He basically broke it down. But when in November, when we had this last meeting that we had, it was an outstanding turnout. I'm not saying it was 50 people, 60 people, but it was somewhere about 40 people that came. We had a law enforcement, our fire department came, CEP representatives came, and most importantly, our everyday people, citizens came, because I think a lot of time they are not heard. And I don't know that Ms. Lobo here that some of the state roadways, citizens had concerns about the slowing, the calming of the roadways. Like you said, Chair Moore, some of them wanted the speed instead of the calming. And, we shared with them, we were trying to get the zero fatalities. So it was a great meeting. Ever since 22, we have been actively engaged in trying to get our communities to buy in. And I think they're coming along well. And that's the basic of what I really wanted to say.
Very nice. Okay.
Oh.
That was a great report from Marion County. You know, I spent, last summer I went to the Main Street Conference in Ocala and I had a wonderful time. You were wonderful hosts. Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
are we in member comments yet, or am I early?
we're talking about Vision Zero.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
Okay, okay, Mr. Woods.
So we were awarded a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, $690,000 for in partnership with the University of Central Florida. They have a smart and safe transportation lab at the graduate level there. So we're going to do a regional network evaluation and come up with a safety action plan that's going to be incorporated into our 2050 long range transportation plan. So look forward to working with UCF on this project.
They're wonderful. Okay. Anyone from Marion? You want to jump in or don't land? Do you want to jump into your Vision Zero, Mayor?
Sure. For River to Sea TPO, we cover Volusia County and at the moment, parts of Flagler County, but assuming that passes through the governor's office, we'll now cover all of Flagler County as well. But for quite a few years, we were setting targets based on the statistics from the previous year and looking at essentially a 2% reduction. But we came to realize that the Vision Zero was a much better plan of action that, as the great advertising that goes along with that, no deaths are acceptable. And so that is what we adopted. And we've encouraged all the members of our TPO to join in and sign resolutions at the local level. And we're not there yet with everyone, but I know I can speak for the city of DeLand that we have issued that.
Okay. All right, Ms. Colleen.
Yes, thank you. And just to add what Mayor Cloudman had mentioned with regards to our safety vision, we did shift with our targets, but we were also awarded a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant to cover both Volusia and Flagler counties. We partnered with the counties as our local match for that. So we'll be identifying areas, roadway corridors for safety, and also identifying projects for implementation for our local governments to then apply for subsequent funding through the grant program. Additionally, we also adopted the Best Foot Forward as it moved into Volusia County. And they recently had their first crosswalk operation earlier this week in the city of DeBary. I was not able to attend, but I did see some video from it, and it was very shocking with plainclothes police officers crossing the road and vehicles not yielding. But then in the video, you did see the law enforcement motorcycles then chase them down and issue tickets. So it was very eye-opening. So we have 9 other crosswalks within Volusia County that are going to have that operation campaign as well. So very excited that it was able to move into Volusia County. We're also looking at a way to possibly extend that or help fund extending that into Flagler County as well.
Okay, thank you. And did I get everyone?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just to
Mr. Hutman.
add on what Commissioner Moore was talking about. MetroPlan is, and Commissioner Moore was talking about Orange County specifically. MetroPlan's approach to this is developing one regional safety action plan. And then we have 3 county safety action plans and 19 municipal safety action plans, all going on at the same time. And we started those in July. We anticipate having that work completed in the May, June timeframe or so. But some numbers that are just pop out to me, and I'm just curious if others are experiencing this as well. About 40% of our serious injuries and deaths are occurring on just 2% of our roadways. Which, leads you to think if you focus, if you can just really focus on 2% of your roadways and make some progress there, what kind of success you could really have with doing this. And then the other one is the 60%, I think, is on state roads. And I'm curious, and that makes sense, right? That, speed is such a problem on safety. It's really, I think speeding is probably more of an issue on state roads. I mean, they're made to carry traffic, right? So could any directors weigh in on that? Are those numbers kind of consistent across the region?
Gary, I will definitely, the majority of the serious injuries and fatalities are happening on state roads. And from our analysis, it absolutely has to do with speed. It's certainly not, a lack of safety improvements or what have you. I need to check about the percentage that you were talking about on just the 2 targeted roadways. I don't think ours is that dialed in. It's a little bit more broad. But we do have a targeted list that has been updated, as I mentioned, for our high injury network, so that we can focus on them.
Okay, yes, please.
Madam Chair, thank you again, Ryan Cordick with the Polk TPO. Gary, and great point, great question. Clearly in Polk, yes, the majority of our serious injuries, crashes occur on the state highway network. I wish it was just a couple corridors, but I think in Polk, it's a little more spread out though. And we know the usual suspects in Polk, like US 27, Interstate 4, State Road 60, US 98, just to name a few, but that's where we're seeing a lot of our issues. And then, if it's vehicular crashes versus like bicyclists and pedestrian, we have some others, and some of our environmental justice or traditionally underserved areas along the state roads. So we have more of a bike PID focus, and we've tried to attack those issues in Polk, actually allocating some of our TMASU funding to try to help resolve some of those issues. But and just really quick, Madam Chair, I would say back to the Safe Streets for All grant, Polk has received one. It's about $1 million, including a $200,000 local match from Polk County. The TPO partnered with Polk and all the communities again to receive that grant. We're maybe a little behind some of the others. We hope to get that underway probably by this summer, and then say middle of 25, we'll hopefully have an adopted Vision Zero action plan for Polk County. And as part of that, we will be addressing and I guess confirming or defining our top 20 intersection and roadway corridors that are the most safe. And that's going to be the real focus of that effort. And then again, ultimately try to apply for subsequent grants to do something about it. So that's our plan.
Yeah, okay. I want to add too, from what Mr. Huntman said about the concept that that's 2% of our roads with the problems. We don't have our law enforcement able to put enough enforcement units out. And so I was able to use our dashboard for my sector chief and show her exactly where most of the fatalities were, and get her to agree to put more enforcement right in that area. So that dashboard's already been a good tool with law enforcement for me. So, Ms. Bobo, before we end this subject, would you like to add anything? Because you got to hear all of us what we're saying.
That all of us moving in that, thank you, whoever turned me on, that we're all moving in that same direction. I really do think that we're going to start seeing even more results than we already have. I was actually just looking at our data the other day. We don't have the last 60 days of data, so I don't have December yet. But if December 23 is similar to previous months and in previous Decembers, in District 5, I believe our numbers will be about 100 less than last year, the previous year. So don't quote me on that because they're still going through all the crash reports and things like that. But that was very encouraging to me. How we did that or how we're, I don't know yet, but I just feel like all of these little things and all of these big things that we're doing are helping getting us there.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to, before we get to comment, ask if this group at our next meeting would be interested in adopting a Vision Zero action plan as an alliance, if that'd be something we'd like to do. Basically a resolution. Yes. All right, so we can direct staff to bring something back to us at the next meeting. Okay, the informational item A is 2024. It's the Central Florida MPO Alliance meeting schedule. That is in tab 6 for you to review. And then with that, member comments.
Madam Chair, I'll bring the view from the bottom, so to speak. I was in that law enforcement profession for quite some time. And, I know it doesn't come to any surprise here, but the number one cause of accidents between vehicles and pedestrians are drivers and riders. People look at you and say, what? I said, well, if you were on I-4 this morning when I was coming in, you'd know exactly what I meant by that. I managed a group that my boss called the Selective Enforcement Unit, affectionately known in the department as the Goon Squad. What's problematic is that, and I might be a former aggressor myself. I was born in Daytona Beach and was a former Harley rider. So my wife suggested it's her that motorcycle. I had her for 51 years, so the motorcycle went. So can I say, we have to figure out something that does not put the full load on these engineers and the rest of to devise something that stops people from doing outrageous stuff. Like many of you who have to travel I-4, when you come to it for its eastbound trek off of 27, it is jammed both ends. Many of you experience that all the time, right? And when I says, you get this person to come to your local podiums, and I know you've heard this at least once. I've been here a long time. I used to could get from here to there in 15 minutes. Now it takes me, I usually just look at them and say, you know, you're welcome. And it happens. But they are the people that get frustrated because they can't get to. And we put in things called roundabouts that make really good sense, calming. Oh, they don't understand them. So they don't like them. They gripe about them. And that's where that is. We've got to find a way to merge what we do with what they want to do. And we got to find a way to try and get those small percentage actually that do reckless things separated from those who are just trying to get from point A to point B. I think that's going to be something we're going to have to partner more with the LE side to get done, simply because, again, I'm tooling along today at about 65 or 70, which is pretty good speed for I-4 eastbound to Orlando from Polk in the morning. There's at least 3 folk that feel like they can fit this size vehicle into this size space, and they're going to do it no matter what. When we talk about our fatalities are down, I like that commercial that talks about, well, the ones we got left, we're going to take out of your family unit and see how you like that. Getting to 0 is an ideal that I think we should be searching for nothing less. But again, we're going to have to really drill down to the basic problem. And my unit was employing several techniques called the WMT, which is write more tickets. That's effective for a moment because I had a county that's 2,000 square miles in size. I'm here today. When they realize that I'm no longer here today, bad habits come back. So I was in this circle pattern of write more tickets, and that doesn't really do it either. So this group, I think, has the wherewithal to be able to say, hey, we still got to keep drilling down to find something that works on both sides of the equation. And we bring in new residents who look at you and go, y'all don't have a traffic problem, because they came from someplace that what I saw on I-4 this morning is calm. And all of a sudden they go, you guys got cars, you can drive around. Like that's a new freedom. I said, well, we've kind of had that freedom in America for a while. It's just that you haven't enjoyed it. Here, we have a challenge that I think the things that we talk about and do, obviously that's on our plate, but we also got to keep in mind that there's an element to it that is difficult to control. And that's people behind the wheel. We talked about trucks this morning, finding a place for them to park. Trucks are our economy in motion. They're the last point from which goods get from where they originate to your doorstep. And we can't toss them out the window because technology, and I keep telling my kids to run for your lives because AI is taking us over. But many truck companies today have vehicles that will shut down after a certain amount of hours of operation. The thing just quits, will not go any further. So the driver obviously has to find some place to put it. And if we don't do that, we need to get that a little sooner than we possibly are going to, because now you're talking about a 58, 59-foot vehicle that can't move. So all of those are challenges, and I'm saying these because they're going to be you guys' challenges. Because come April, I'm out of here. But that's one of those things that I believe was being faced when I came here 20-some years ago. It continues to be, but I think our focus might need to shift to the one element that controls it more than anything else we do, and that's the operator, be it the truck, be it the motorcycle, be it whatever. If we don't reach that, I think so many of our efforts will not yield the fruit we hope that they will. Thank you, ma'am.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for those comments. Any other member comments? If not, I'm going to go to.
I had one.
Okay. Oh, yes, Mayor Daley.
Well, in my personal opinion, it's more mass transit is part of the answer. Driving down 528 the other day, doing 70 miles an hour, the bright line went flying past me, and I said, gee, I wish I was going that fast. But I just wanted to congratulate Mr. Ryan Kordek. He was named this week as the executive director of the Polk TPO, replacing Prague.
Oh, very good.
And that's all I have.
Okay, very good. All right, this is the second opportunity for public comments, and comments heard at this point in the meeting are more general in nature. Members of the public joining us virtually who wish to speak, just do your raise hand motion. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone, Rachel or Lisa, or anyone who wishes to speak at this time?
Madam Chair, there's no hands raised online.
There are none? Okay, thank you so much.
Correct, none.
Okay, well, with that, the next meeting is April 12th, 10 a.m. here at Metroplan Orlando. And with that, we're adjourned.
And Madam Chair, we don't have any, we did not receive any comments.
Oh, I was ready to go. We're good. We're out.